So today we are going to be going over how to plant trees to have the most success for their growth and survival into the future. So what we're going to be using today is a dibble bar. This is a handy tool for planting a lot of trees very quickly. And we'll also be going over how to plant them with a spade or shovel. We're going to be using Norway spruce since we had a whole bunch of them left over for our sale. And it's a really hardy species, so it's something that can survive in most soil conditions. We're going to plant it along the edge of our property here to act as a windbreak. The most important thing to consider when you're planting these trees is making sure that the entirety of the roots are covered with soil. You don't want any of the roots to be exposed because it will dry out and girdle the tree. Basically, it'll keep it from getting water from the soil up to the needles of these trees or the leaves of other trees that you may plant. So when you're looking at your trees for where to plant them, how deep to plant them, they'll have a root flare that is evident basically right where the green growth stops. The roots will flare out into a large node, basically, that shows where the roots of the tree begin. So when your packages, we have a nice package of 5 here, we see the end of the green growth here, and it goes down to the roots and flares out at the end. So this is how deep we want to plant our trees. So you may notice that on your dibble bar, the roots may be a bit longer than the actual bar itself. You can trim your roots. It's not something that you want to trim all of them, but you can trim them up to the length of the dibble bar to help with the actual planting. So I'm just going to take a couple off. There we go. So our planting area, we want to basically plant it straight down. The bar at the end helps with actually puncturing the earth. You can move it around to get some more length to it. Of course, we hit either a rock or clay. There we go. And you want to make sure that the roots are all pointing downward. If they're planted in a J, they'll start to wrap around the actual base of the tree as a normal growth pattern for them, and it'll end up girdling the roots that way as well. So we want to make sure it's all facing downward. There we go. Now we don't want to just stamp the soil down because that'll compact the soil and make it harder for the roots to grow. So what we can do is leave this standing as best we can and go a few inches behind it with the bar, press down, and then close it up by gently pushing it into place. And making sure to cover up any exposed roots so that they are safely protected from the elements. It should be just compact enough that you can see your handprint in it, but just faintly. So it's not going to be so compacted down that it's just completely flat. You want to have some looseness to it so that there's moisture that's able to penetrate into the soil. And so then you have the second hole. That one you can jam back into place, whether with the the heel of your boot, or just fill it back in with a shovel. So that is one tree planted. We'll show how to do that with a shovel. It's a very similar pattern, except the shovels can have some unique shapes to them. Like a planting spade will have a rounded shape to it, but will have this nice point to it so it can get down deeper into the soil, which helps especially with species that have very deep roots. Now we don't want to plant right next to each other because it'll be in the future really competitive with their neighbors. We want to make sure that there's plenty of space for them to grow and be as healthy as possible. So this is a 5-foot shovel, so we can just go 1, 2, and that is 10 feet away, and that is about the minimum distance I would put them apart. You can go, if you are trying to make a windscreen, 10 to 12 feet is kind of recommended for the spacing. If you want them to have a nice wide open growth pattern to them, 15 feet is pretty good as well. So we want to have this as a nice screen and windbreak from the cornfield and the road. So we're going to plant them pretty close together. So mark this and get a new tree. Again, we're going to find that root flare to see how deep we need to bury it. We can see this one's a bit shorter than the last one. Just a little inch from the end of the green growth where it flares out and starts the roots. This one, with the shovel, you can see we have plenty of room to actually bury the roots. We don't have to trim them at all. So a very similar process. You're going to try and penetrate as deep as you can. Use the shovel to make a gap. And you want to make sure that the roots go as straight down as possible. And today is the perfect weather to be planting trees, so you can use this information right away. So we'll leave that standing.
How soon should you plant?
Once you get them, the sooner the better, but they can be in this packaging for over the weekend at least. If you're going to be waiting more than a week, then I would recommend putting them in planter pots and with potting soil, just so the roots can get start growing and get established. So very similar to what we did with the dibble bar, we're going to go a few inches behind it, press down, and then gently push the soil into place. Make sure we cover up any exposed roots. And then we can close up the second hole. And after we plant, we want to make sure that the roots get plenty of water. I recommend about a half gallon of water per plant, and that's usually about a coffee can's worth. So after you plant them, make sure that you water them plentifully, and during dry spells during the summer, make sure you can check the soil so that it is holding onto moisture. And that's how you plant your trees.